All right, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and then start the slideshow. Okay, thank you everyone for joining today and for having me have the opportunity to present this topic to you. Today, we're going to talk specifically about acquiring clients for your law practice. Believe it or not, there's a bit of a science that's behind this, and I've put this material together based on my experience and also some new strategies and tactics that I am also working with my clients on that I am hoping will be helpful to you as well. So in the presentation today, I'm going to just do a quick overview of the topics that are going to be covered um, as we move through the details. So the first piece that we're going to talk about is the core components of client acquisition, marketing versus business development, identifying your ideal clients, building authentic relationships, and then bringing it over to cover modern marketing tools, the client acquisition process, and then how to build that loyalty through client retention, and then to give you an example of what a 30-day action plan could look like. Because the material that we're going to cover today is not going to be just theory, it's also going to have some implementation behind it, which is usually helpful when attorneys just need a starting point. So let's cover the core components of client acquisition because in knowing what the core components are will help you to really understand the details that are included in that path to acquiring a client. So the core components that I feel and research has proven to be of high value are visibility, engagement, trust, and consistency. And these four components matter simply because people hire who they see. They love to engage. The more engagement that happens, the more they remember you. And for some really odd reason and how evolution has happened, people trust who shows up consistently. And that could be in your social feeds. It could be at networking events. That could be on your LinkedIn profile. It could be in other methods of marketing that you're using to reach these individuals. And to lay the foundation, let's get like a clear understanding about marketing versus business development. A lot of times these two get mushed together. However, there are two separate disciplines that I think need to be defined and fully understood so that you know exactly what to do in each scenario. So in the marketing space, marketing is equal to visibility. That's where you're doing one to many. So you're marketing and you're telling the masses about you, about your practice, and what you do and what you offer. Versus business development, that's more on the engagement side, where you're being active with individuals. So you're building one-on-one relationships and really solidifying them in a way that make them so secure, so sticky that those clients, that once they convert, they keep coming back to you and they keep sending you referrals. So in going back to marketing, these things that fall under marketing are not limited to what I have here, but I wanted to give you some high level examples so that you can recognize and know what these things look like, these activities look like, the marketing tools that you can invest in quite easily at this time. But of course, we can go on and on about marketing tools that you can use. So your brand and your branding, that's number one. That interaction that people are going to have with your brand and branding are going to be what the marketing piece is going to carry. And just to define what brand and branding is, branding and brand is what the client or prospective client feels in their interaction with you. It's not just your logo, it's not just your website, it's not just any of that stuff. It's what is that feeling that they get with you? That is your brand, that feeling, that connection that they get with your brand. Secondly, it's including your website, meaning what's on your website, the functionality of your website, Is it informative? Is it useful? Is it interactive? Then following that up with social media. And of course, there's a plethora of things that can fall under this umbrella. However, social media is one of those things that can be easily used to market yourself or your practice. And lastly, I'm going to mention here thought leadership. This is where you are telling the masses about yourself, but proving that you are a thought leader by pushing out content that positions you in that way. So, for example, if you're a trust attorney, you're specifically talking about things that make up, what you give to your client. Say, for example, you're writing a trust, you're preparing a trust. If you're speaking from a thought leader standpoint in the way that you present yourself, for example, through social media or in articles that you write and you push out in magazines and you publish on the various social media platforms, that positions you as a thought leader. Now, flipping over to the business development side, this again, like I mentioned before, are your one-on-ones. These are conversations, these are follow-ups, these are marketing activities, networking activities and relationship building activities that you do to build those one-on-one relationships that are so solid that that client feels no other choice but to instruct you as their attorney and then to continue on the relationship.
Antonia, sorry, I
Mhm.
we see it only the first slide.
Oh, sorry. Hold on
Yeah,
us. Are you seeing the business development marketing versus?
no, no. I
Okay.
think you
Okay.
probably
Hang
have,
on.
yeah.
Let's stop sharing and share again. So let's see. Okay. Are you seeing marketing versus business development now?
Yes,
Okay.
thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Thank you for letting me know that.
Mhm.
Um, so yes, going back to what I was talking about with the marketing versus business development, that this is where the two of them split and what makes up each one of those buckets. And I know we can circulate this presentation after for people just so that they can have a reference for it. So now, again, in laying this foundation of understanding client acquisition, we have to first identify our ideal clients. If we do not know who it is that we're looking for, then we can't market to them effectively, and neither can we build relationships. So there's a bit of an exercise that we have to do in order for us to nail down exactly who we're going after, and what the makeup of these people are. So, in identifying your ideal clients, we like to create what we call a client profile. These client profiles include demographics, meaning, is there a household income level that you're looking for? Is there an age bracket that you're looking for? What characteristics about this individual are important and need to exist in order for you to serve that individual who is, of course, representative of a larger group, um, and you're able to connect and relate and offer them what it is that you're offering as an attorney. Second to that is the industry or segment that they are in. You have to ensure that you understand what industry and segment these individuals are a part of. Sometimes this takes a little bit of like really understanding yes, your ideal client is, but are they all doctors, for example? Are they all real estate agents? Are they real estate brokers? Like, what are they and how deeply do you need to go and understanding that industry in order for you to start targeting those individuals that are essentially going to be your clients and will develop your business? You need to also consider their legal needs. Like, what solution is it that you're trying to bring to them? Like, what problem are you solving? And that's going to be what their legal needs are. And those two things need to match up in order for you to call them and for them to be deemed your ideal client. Lastly, you're going to need to know what are their typical problems. Because again, your role as an attorney is to solve the problem or to prevent a problem that they're about to face or could potentially face. So you want to understand what their typical problems are so that you're able to speak to those things as you're building their relationships and also including that in your marketing material. So building authentic relationships is going to be super, super key in making those acquisitions possible. And to build these authentic relationships, there are a couple of pillars that exist in order for you to be able to really nail these relationships down, right? So that you're able to then, move them through the acquisition path and process so that they can convert into a client. These pillars include relationship-driven growth. And the first bullet point is connections are greater than transactions. What that means is when you're going out and thinking of acquiring new clients, developing your business, you do not want to just focus on one-off clients and transactions. You want those to be what we call institutional clients, meaning that they keep coming back to you more and more and more and more and sending work to you more and more and more and more because there is a relationship. It's not just a transaction. So, of course, in some practices, some people say, well, oh, I just needed to create a trust once for them and, they don't really need to come back. Think of key ways that you can develop your business so that you can serve that client again and again and again so that they keep coming back to you. Maybe it might be every year as a trust attorney, you're figuring out how do they revisit their trust every year to 2 years to update it. And that's just one example for somebody who's in the trust space. If it's where you're reviewing documents for a client or making sure that all of their, legal engagement letters are a part of what you're doing, set a cadence for when you need to follow up and perhaps refresh them. So that way, the client becomes a connected and embedded institutionalized client and not just transactional. Next, here we're going to talk about trust fueling long-term growth. As clients trust you, they will just naturally send everything that's related to law to you, even if you can't do it. I call that an opportunity for you to build a referral ecosystem. That ecosystem can equate to you either collecting a referral fee for referring that matter out, or you can use those referrals to build relationships with other attorneys that will in turn send you other types of matters that fall within your wheelhouse. So again, that relationship-driven growth of, referring clients to other attorneys if they don't fit within your practice, and then having that ecosystem where client work comes back to you from these referrals or sources that you're sending clients to. And then being authentic instead of aggressively selling, right? So be your authentic self, and that is what's going to be the lasting connection between you and clients. If you're your authentic self, at any time the client feels like they know you, they feel like they can trust you, it's just going to deepen the relationship more and more. So whenever you're meeting with clients or potential clients, always remember, yes, to maintain a professional attitude. However, be your authentic self. Don't try to be like one of your competitors or perhaps somebody that you saw on YouTube or somebody that you saw on Instagram. Be your authentic self. Then communication that builds rapport. This is active listening and asking meaningful questions. Even when the prospect is not your client as yet, you need to practice active listening where you've turned on your ears and you're really listening to what this client's talking about, what they're asking, what their pain points are, and really recording them for future reference because the more informed you appear to the client, the more they are going to trust you. The more meaningful questions that you ask them, the more invested they're going to feel that you are in their business and in whatever their problem is, getting it solved. Showing genuine interest, meaning you're not just gonna do a blanketed hello when you meet with them. Instead, you're going to really go beyond that, getting deeply into whatever it is that they're talking about or they're communicating or whatever stress points they're expressing to you. Like, be genuinely interested in what they're talking about and show that to the prospective client and even to your now clients, because that again is going to just build the relationship and make it even more solid. So assessing value in every interaction is a piece that I like to encourage attorneys to do because the more interaction that's happening tells you more about the strength or weakness of the relationship that you're having with the client or potential client. So assess, after, communicating with them, was that a good interaction or bad interaction? And of course, this is requiring you to look at body language. This is you reading the cues, reading the room, seeing if perhaps something makes the client really, really, agitated or perhaps like nervous, like really pay attention to that because that's also going to help you to understand the client better and it's going to help you to deepen the relationship. Now, ethical relationship nurturing, and I like to stress ethical because you don't want to come across as a salesy, pushy person. You want to be consistent in your check-ins with the prospective client if they're not your client, and still checking in with your existing clients, even if you've converted those prospects into clients. Sharing helpful resources is another way that you can really, really build those relationships and really nurture it and nurture it fast. And sharing helpful resources could be an article that you downloaded that you saw that's relevant to your entire client base, and you send individual emails to them with a personal email message just saying, hey, I found this article, thought it would be useful to you. Let me know if you want to chat. That gives you another opportunity to be in front of that client again. And then you're getting an opportunity to talk about what's going on and perhaps what new matters could be coming out of, that one conversation. I mentioned before not being pushy, but staying top of mind is what you really want to do. That is staying in that person's inbox as much as you can, but not in a pushy and tacky way, but instead in a very professional, polished way where you're bringing useful information to that prospective client or to the client that you already engage with. Then I'm going to mention here as well that respecting professional boundaries is going to be important because while you're building your relationship, you still want to maintain your professionalism. So let's talk now about the modern marketing tools that you have available to you and that you can use. And that I will say that I recommend to my clients as attorneys because not all spaces are suitable for attorneys to push the content that they want to get out to prospective clients. So LinkedIn is a key and hot place, not just for your clients, but for other attorneys who are also in your network to see what you offer, what you do, to read more about perhaps the topical things that are happening in your area and could perhaps send you referrals, or perhaps it might be something that you mentioned that they can forward on to a friend of theirs that you never know can convert into a matter. Thought leadership content, like I mentioned before, writing articles, making submissions, doing a webinar online through LinkedIn or on your own with the bar in your state. Add in yourself to online directories that are specific to the legal industry are also really helpful, and is also a place that comes up in searches. And Chat GPT, by the way, I have to tell you this. Chat GPT is not equipped and smart enough as yet to be able to pull specific data about attorneys to rank them. So what it does, it pulls information from directories. So when somebody is looking for, show me a corporate attorney in Boston, that information right now for ChatGPT is coming from directories that those attorneys are on. So just note that and know that online directories are really helpful and useful for that because it can potentially determine whether or not you're showing up in a ChatGPT search, and that's where people are just going for everything now these days. Email newsletters are another digital piece and tool that you can use that is very, very effective because you are in the inbox often. Whatever cadence you select, just keep that cadence and be consistent, which dovetails very nicely into the next segment, which is showing up with professional consistency. So weekly LinkedIn activity is what's recommended. Some people are on LinkedIn every single day and they're really active. However, I know that that's sometimes not possible. But at a minimum, if you can do one weekly post, that could move the needle for you. Monthly content or insights, that is a newsletter or again, pushing this type of content through your social media channels, or if it's, sending a couple of emails to hot prospects so that they're able to see what's happening in your space right now and what of that is relevant to them. Because again, you being in the inbox just makes you relevant, keeps you top of mind. Now let's talk about bios because bios, I think, just don't get enough credit for what they do and could do. So say, for example, you showed up in a search for a chat GPT, research that someone did, and they now want to go and find out more about you. Your bio is probably going to be where these people go to, could be second to or before your LinkedIn profile. So it's important that you have your LinkedIn profile as up to date as possible, but also your online bio. The online bio, what I will say is that that is an untapped area that a lot of attorneys overlook because as you are working through matters, new matters, you are gaining more and more experience. You're adding years onto your belt. You're adding on new things, new laws and bills that you're applying the law to that in your practice. And updating your bio, I would say no more than 90 days going by at a time when in that cadence is going to keep your content fresh and you're going to seem like you're in the now and you're the attorney to go to in that state for that thing because your stuff is so up to date. So if you're including matters on there that you're closing out, you can put the year, month, and stuff like that. So now you're in the game right now, and the client sees that as, oh, this person just closed a matter on that. They are in the know of what the current stuff is, puts you at the top of the line, and it increases your chances of being hired by that client. Regular engagement in your network. This could be, like I said, if you're going out and networking physically in person, it could be joining online forums. It could be joining networking groups. Whatever that is for you, whatever that means to you, make it regular and engage on an ongoing basis. You can't do a hit or miss here and there and expect results. It has to be consistent in order for you to like really drive home your space and to really establish who you are and what you do in your practice. The last piece here that I'm going to talk about before we get into the deep end of this is the tools that build credibility. So I talked about some of these before, but just highlighting articles and videos as the top. I have a client right now that said to me, Antonia, I don't like to do videos. Okay, I understand. You don't like to do videos. However, let's look at the stats on videos. Videos, that's where the visibility is happening. People want videos even on LinkedIn, while people might not actively hit the button to listen to the video, they're reading the captions. So even if you think, oh, I don't like video, that's fine. But even if you just include captions on there, just know that the caption pieces is probably what they're going to be reading and not even listening to what you said. So don't get too hung up in saying, I don't like how I sound and all the other stuff. Just go for it, record it, add the captions and post it. What you say, they want to hear, so they are going to read it. That's just the way that LinkedIn works. We haven't yet figured out why, but this is what the stats and the analytics are telling us as business developers and marketers. Webinars are another key piece that you can use, very helpful because it positions you as being in the know, being a thought leader again, and more likely to convert over into clients. Podcast guesting is another untapped piece because other people have podcasts and you now get access to their audiences. So now you get to leverage off of the hundreds of contacts that they're, managing and pushing out content to. Now you're a guest on there, so you get credibility based off of the credibility that they have. So you got your audience plus theirs. And lastly, case studies. Don't be scared to, write generic case studies about matters that you have closed because it proves that you are an expert and you can do exceptional things in your space that other attorneys perhaps will not write or talk about. So now that we've laid the foundation, let's talk about the client acquisition process, kind of how it goes from the start all the way to acquiring that client. So now that we've talked about awareness, we're going to talk about this path starting at awareness because your marketing tools, which we outlined just now, we talked about what they could be, what those things are that you could do to build up that awareness. Then we are going to go from awareness and making all the people that we know are our targets, the people that we want to pull in as clients. We're going to let them know about, here are the things that are going to be interesting to you. So we're going to now be driving into interests, keying into, looking at the analytics of what people are watching from what you post. What are they interacting most with? What are people asking you more about? Whatever those things are, you're going to do more of them because that's indicating to you what is working and what is not. The more of that you do, the closer you then get to converting into a conversation. Because, for example, if you've written an article, sent it to someone, and you're now in their inbox, that is a potential conversation that could now happen. That conversation in free talking where there's trust being built, the relationships being built, it then leads to the client moving to engaging with you, right? So that's the process that usually happens from awareness, building up that interest, like really honing in on what they're interested in, having the conversation based on all this the material that you put out there, moving into engaging with the client, and then converting over into an acquisition. So this is the typical process by which a client goes through for attorneys from start to finish when you're doing your marketing and business development and then working them through the path. What I want to note here is that I recommend that whatever targets you have, make a record somewhere that you go back to, whatever cadence you want to go back to it, to know where they are in your pipeline. Where are they in your path? Because that tells you what you need to do more of and what section or piece of your path they're at, what stage, and what you need to do to move them to the next stage. And also in noting this information, it helps you to be able to rinse and repeat it again to acquire more clients going forward. Because typically when it works for one, you just keep doing it over and over and over to build out your client base. Key tip here is to tailor your communication accordingly, depending on where the client is in this path, because where somebody else is at the awareness level, the communication that you have with them is going to be different from somebody that you have, worked up a conversation with. So just be careful in how you tailor your communication so that you appear to know exactly where they are in the process and, how strong or developed your relationship is with that prospect. And then I'm going to mention some key pieces here. In going through this acquisition process, the things that matter and really, really help are having a follow-up system that's robust, right? Meaning that you're tracking your interactions, you're setting next steps. And one key next step that I like to recommend is like once you get that initial interaction with a prospective client and you're about to hang up, ask when you can speak again and put that date into your calendar then. That keeps the flow and conversation going, and you get to remain top of mind and you're in their inbox and now in their calendars. So the conversion is higher. The likelihood of the conversion is higher. Make sure you do regular check-ins, whatever that cadence looks and feels best at for yourself and for your client. It could be every 90 days, it could be every 30 days. And this is not only for prospecting, this is also for clients that you have already worked with. Don't forget them. You have to figure out a way to, again, show up in their inboxes because you want to remain top of mind. You don't want them to forget about you. You want them to refer work to you. And you also want to have conversations with them because you never know. There might be a matter that they're not thinking about, or perhaps you have not thought about. But in conversation and regular check-ins, you can shake those out, and then a matter comes from that conversation. Also, be very clear in your timelines, whatever they look like for you and the client. Being sure that, you're very clear about, here's what we're going to do next, and here's, you know, what I will get to you. That just keeps the relationship super strong. It just keeps developing, and it becomes so sticky that that client does not ever want to leave you to go work with somebody else. And then tracking what matters. This goes back again to talk to tracking prospects in your pipeline, but also tracking any conversations that you have with the client after the matter closes is also important because you always want to appear to know what's going on whenever you talk to the client and not forget what you talked about in your last conversation. They'll remember if you don't remember what they talked about with you. And it puts you in a place where you look like you're disconnected from that person. Of course, we can't remember anything, but at least as attorneys, if we keep a good record of things, at least we appear to know what's going on, right? Um, and then meetings scheduled, if you have meetings scheduled with them, keep those meetings, track those meetings, what was discussed in those meetings. Again, just keeping what we call a client relationship management system of your own. Some firms, of course, yes, have the luxury of a CRM system, but if you're just starting out, an Excel document does just fine, right? You don't need something sophisticated to do this. Other things to record are proposals that were sent, the date that they were sent, and then, of course, the engagement date that opened up the relationship, opened up the working relationship. What was that date? Because that's going to tell you how long from the first conversation about this matter until closing that it took. So that gives you some realistic expectations when you're looking at other prospective matters in the future to know how long it could potentially take to get there. So now we're going to talk about client retention and loyalty. So say, for example, um, you're trying to ensure that this client stays with you. You want them to be loyal to you, and you want to, think about what are the things that could do. So in retaining clients, I like to say is a product of communication. The more you communicate with your client, the more likely they are to be so connected and so sticky with you that they do not want to leave, right? They want to stay with you forever through the end of time. And if they could make you do every single piece of legal work that they have, even when it's not in your practice area, they'll still try to send it to you. That's how you know, by the way, that indication that the relationship's really strong. So when you start having clients that are asking you about things that are not even in your wheelhouse, take that as oh my goodness, this is great. This relationship's strong. You know it's strong when you have that. Reliability is key, being reliable. Even if you can't be the attorney who helps them, that referral being reliable and doing what you say that you're going to do is what's going to retain that client and keep them loyal to you. Whatever responsiveness that you have set and told them that you will follow, make sure you stick to it because that's going to help you retain that client relationship. And results, right? Being realistic, of course, with results. Some of our practices do not allow us to say, well, I know for sure this is going to happen, right? In a lot of cases, it's that way. But in giving them the results in terms of sticking to the deadlines, preparing and delivering documents like you told them that you would, making the connections, whatever it is that was promised, that is going to be highlighted to the client as a result, a positive result, and you want to make sure that you follow through on those things. Building loyalty. Like I mentioned some of the stuff before, just some of this is overlapping, but it's also helpful to call some of these things out. So consistent delivery. So consistently delivering to the client on a consistent basis, not just sometimes or here and there. Meeting expectations and exceeding those expectations where possible. So if you're able to under promise and over deliver, you're hitting the mark out of the park. So go in with that attitude, and that attitude positions you as a winner. Again, being dependable, and creating an exceptional experience where the client feels that they're so well taken care of that they would never go to another attorney for the type of work that they're coming to you for. Lastly, here in the post-engagement strategies, what I like to highlight in this piece is after you've wrapped up a matter with a client, that's not the end. And I think I've stressed that a whole lot in this presentation, but I want to say that a thank you follow-up email is golden to a client. You following up after everything is closed out and gone away, you're following up to say, thank you for working with me. Thank you for working with my firm. Thank you for the business, whatever it is that you want to say in your thank you. Follow up is golden, and it makes the relationship so much stronger. So do not ever discount a thank you follow up to a client. Um, Client satisfaction check-ins are also another like unused tool because the client now feels like you are listening. They want you to respond to them and tell and be given the opportunity to tell them to tell you if something didn't go right. But the fact that you're opening the door to that just further strengthens their relationship because they feel like you are a listener and you're willing to take constructive criticism. Staying connected by email or LinkedIn are key pieces to do after an engagement. Being sure to remain that connection in some way or form. Like I said, you can pick the cadence that you want to send emails. And that could be like the last point suggest here of sharing helpful updates and resources. That can be done through email or LinkedIn, whatever feels best for you or perhaps works best for the client. And then here, I'm going to wrap up with this 30-day action plan because, like I said before, this is not only about theory, about receiving this content. You have to put this into action, right? And this 30-day action plan actually gives some very realistic expectations that you can set for yourself to implement business development and client acquisition into your practice. The first thing is one visibility action. And an example of a visibility action is writing one article, like in this case, per quarter, and sending that article out to your contacts, right? So that builds visibility. One relationship building action. So one example of that is sending a helpful article that's relevant to your client's industry and offer to answer any questions. That's going to build the rapport. It's going to build a relationship. It's going to strengthen it from where it is and elevate it up to the next level. One follow-up system improvement. So think about, matters that you've closed recently. What can you do to follow up with those clients right now, just so that you're again in their inbox, so that they think that you care about them, they know actually that you care about them, and that you keep showing up and remaining top of mind for them. One example, like I mentioned before, is an email or a LinkedIn message, and calendar reminders to remind you to keep the cadence that you've decided to go with. And lastly, my favorite, which is to have an accountability partner. It could be another attorney in your networking group that perhaps keeps you accountable to this. Typically, business development works a whole lot better when you have another person who holds you accountable, where you can also share ideas back and forth, and you're able to hold each other accountable. And before I let you talk about questions, I wanted to say that there is a worksheet that goes with this that Ina mentioned earlier, and that's going to lay out how you develop your client profile, and it's also going to help you to set your 30-day action plan. However, if you have questions about how to work through that document, please, please, please just reach out to me, and I'm happy to walk you through how it's done, and give you any guidance that you need. But I just wanted to give a few minutes for anybody to ask any questions that you may have.
Antonio, thank you so much. I just wanted to say that I dropped the files in the chat.
Okay.
So, like, I think they're downloadable. I'm also gonna put my email address,
Hmm.
so that if you need materials, anyone, please let me know.
Hmm.
And I'll send, and I think you can also connect with Antonia. Antonia, you can also drop your email in the chat, I think.
Yes, I will. Yeah, absolutely. So here are my contact details, and I'm also
Oh,
going to
here we
put
go.
them in the chat for you. However, if anybody has questions right now, please go ahead and send them my way, and I'll be more than happy to answer this for you.
I have a quick question. Well,
Sure.
first of all, thank you so much, so much. It's
You are
wonderful.
welcome. Hmm.
And I have just like you mentioned CRMs, right? And with the age of AI, I know they're kind of like super advanced now. Do you have any recommendation which are pretty good for lawyers for what they do? And also another question is for like for resources. Do you have any recommendation for books? Something that you think that will be beneficial for our lawyers here.
Absolutely. Yes. So in terms of CRMs, there are two CRMs that I recommend to attorneys. Monday.com has a CRM that can be used for attorneys. In that CRM, you can track your client relationships. You can also run your clients through the acquisition process as well. You can set what those levels are, the different stages, and you can see at what stage those prospects are at. HubSpot is a second one that's also very useful and very user-friendly for attorneys to explore. So those are the top two. And I will say that in the absence of having like your own dedicated marketing and business development person, you want to keep it super simple. And those are two very simple ones that now, in terms of business development books, my ultimate favorite is a book called Give to Grow by Mo Bunnell. And I can get the link for you for that book, but that is perhaps one of the most amazing books that I have read myself. And it talks about giving to grow and how to like lay that foundation to develop client relationships. And he also has another book called, I think it's called The Snowball Effect. And that is another amazing book that he's written. And it talks about, how you create this stickiness with clients to develop relationships. And also how you build a relationship from scratch all the way up to this like institutional relationship status. So those would be the two like easy read starting books for business development if you want a starting point to start building up a cadence and a strategy for which you want to develop your practice.
Thank you so much. And just to clarify, Monday, like the
Like
word Monday.
Monday, yeah.
Okay.
Monday.com.
Okay,
Yes.
got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Any other questions from anybody? Nope. Quiet crowd.
I have a quick question, please.
Oh, sure.
Antonia, first, thank you for your presentation. It was very helpful.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciated the emphasis on marketing versus business development. I think that gets merged and blended a lot. So it was nice to hear the distinction. But I'm curious what your business is. Do you do coaching or what is it specifically? If I could
Yes.
understand that.
Absolutely.
Thank
Good question. Good question. So yes, I do coaching with one-on-one attorneys to build up their practice, as well as on the firm level as well, where we come up with strategies on how we're going to develop the business to the next level, whatever that looks like. One of the key things that I have seen a lot of practices come to me for recently that I've been working on is, they've thought of this new thing that they want to do to generate revenue. And my job is to convert that from being an idea and lifting it off the page and turning it into an actual tangible thing. So if that gives you kind of, a visual or something to understand help you understand the type of work that I do for attorneys. I think that is perhaps the best way to describe it. And even beyond that, if we have the bandwidth to do it, we will help with implementation as well, to get the client to where they need to be, where they're up and running and they're off to the races. Mhm. Thank you for your question, Jennifer.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Mhm.
Like based on your experience, like how much time do lawyers generally dedicate towards the marketing effort versus the business development?
Okay, so typically what happens is the attorney gets really embedded into the marketing stuff, right? Because it's like at your fingertips and you can just splash all this stuff out. Or you can just hire somebody to do it, right? It doesn't require you to take away hours or any time from your business development because it requires one-on-one and networking. So typically, attorneys lean very heavily over into that marketing side and neglect the business development side. I'm going to recommend you do the exact opposite, or at a minimum, let it be 50-50. The relationships and the connections that you are building with individuals are going to reap way more value than you just spraying marketing content out. When you have those relationships built so solid that they're always going to send you work, there are dollar amounts that are attached to every matter that they could potentially send you, and then the ones that they do send you. So I say if you can get it to be 50-50 and at least per week, spend 30 minutes dedicated to like focus business development time at a minimum, like meaningful business development, sending emails, connecting with individuals, whatever that looks like for you, getting a coffee meeting on the calendar, a Zoom meeting, whatever it is that will get you in front of a client. If you can spend 30 minutes, a minimum as a starting point, per week, you will see results from that. As small and short as that seems, it reaps benefits because you're building relationships.
Let me ask you a question, and it's sort of a particular issue, but a lot of us on this call are from big law firms, or at least have dealt with big law firms over the years.
Mhm.
And one problem I have is how to compete with big law. They come with name recognition, big bucks to back up any mistakes,
Mhm.
insurance up the gore to back up mistakes.
Mhm.
And all that makes clients comfortable. It used to be a saying that nobody ever got fired for hiring IBM. It was years ago.
Right.
So clients feel safe
Mhm.
with that kind of structure,
Mhm.
even though you can make pitches about overstaffing and all kinds of pitches that small firms can make.
Mhm.
How do you compete with big law?
In my opinion, I don't think that you should compete with them because they're in a completely different space from you. If you are, say for example, you want to go into that arena, I'm going to tell you it's going to be a challenge, right? But the only way that you will be able to compete is on the relationship level. That's where you're going to be able to compete because the relationship would have to be so solid that it doesn't matter if you have 20 marching associates behind you or not. The relationship is so strong that they can't compete with that. So the only realistic way for you to compete against big law is building the relationship with the decision maker and the person who calls the shots in that client organization.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Antonia.
You are welcome. Thank you
Yeah,
too. And if anybody has if you have questions after, like, feel free to reach out to me. I am happy to connect with you, um, to share any more information that you may need.
perfect. And I will make this recording available. So let me
Mhm.
stop.